All right, now that we've got our desk set up, let's go ahead and start programming. The first thing I'm going to program are submasters containing the intensities that I want to control. This is how, when I'm busking, I'm going to turn lights on and off. I typically divvy my systems up into odds and evens. So I have my even spots, my odd spots, my even beams, my odd beams, even washes, odd washes, and then I have my floor spots and my floor beams. When I'm laying these out, anytime I lay a system out on the desk, I'm always laying it out in this order: spots, beams, washes, floor things, and then other, depending on what I'm doing. So that I can grab any of these handles, say effects or positions, and I can know that the second handle in is always going to be my beam information. And it's just really helpful, again, when you're working in the dark or you're working on the fly, to be able to tactily find things. So this is where record only really becomes our friend. Record only is only going to record our manual values on stage. So if I don't have any of these submasters recorded, I'm actually going to go to a new fader page here so we can take a look at this. If I don't have any of these values recorded, let's say I want to get just my even spots. I'm going to turn on my truss 1. And I can go ahead here and I can just turn it on, but this is going to be all of my fixtures. I just want the even fixtures. So I'm going to grab my truss 1 spots, and I'm going to say offset 2. Okay? I'm using offset 2 because in this case, this is a show and a patch that was done by someone else, and the numbering conventions aren't always the same. And I may not necessarily know what they are. So because I've grouped them all sequentially, by using offset 2, I know that I'm going to grab every second fixture. And I'll bring it to full, and there you go. Sure enough, it's every second fixture. Now, the only values that I have up in my live table are my intensities. So I can say record only, sub, and I'm going to put this one on fader page 5, fader 1. So by my numbering convention, that's going to be sub 51. Record only sub 51, enter, and I'm going to map it to that. Now if I clear, I have that mapped to that fader. So now I want to do the evens. So I'm going to hit select last. It's going to repopulate my selection, including my offset. And now I can just append it with a /2. And it's going to grab the second set of fixtures in there. I grab those at full. Record only, sub 52, because I want it on fader page 5, fader 2. I'm going to map that. And I'm going to clear it out, and now I have my odds. So I have an odds and an evens. Now, one thing you might notice is it looks like there's a buck tooth in that. And there's one reason for this. This bottom truss here actually contains 7 lights. If we look at what's selected here on my live table, you actually see that it's 111 through 113. It skips 114. And then we have 115 through 117. This was a choice that I made in grouping. And this goes back to how I lay out my rig and why I like even numbers of fixtures. Because as we start building these focus palettes, symmetry is our friend. Symmetry looks beautiful, it's easy to make, and it just always looks good. If we have a middle fixture in there, if we cross all of our outer fixtures, what's our middle doing? It's just kind of sitting there and doing nothing. So I've actually taken that out of the group. But if I can turn it on, you can see that it actually exists there, but I don't use it anywhere. If this was a theater show or I had a lot of time, I could probably find some creative use for this fixture. But in working quickly and setting up a file, center fixtures are kind of the bane. They're good for backlights, but that's kind of about it. So in coming in here, I want symmetrical looks and I want them on handles. So I just don't even include them in the look, and they don't get turned on. Is it a shame to have a few lights in the rig that are doing nothing? Yeah, but it's better than just having a single light that points down stage center all the time, because as you're using your fans, that's what its position would be. So now I have my odds and my evens on this handle. I want to go ahead and I want to work with the next group up. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to glow this a little bit so I can see where it's pointing. I don't need it at full, but I just want to see that it's there. And now I'm going to grab my second truss, and it's easy to find because I know exactly where the group is. And I'm going to kind of flash it here to see it. I'm using shift full, by the way, to flash these lights to full. It's an easy way to find them. And I can see that if I say offset 2, and I flash them, that these beams kind of line up, right? You can see on the stage right side here, we've got two beams that are kind of lining up. Well, these are all going to work together as one handle. So I want these to look good when I just bring the fader up. So I'm actually going to type in /2, enter, and now they're kind of offset. So I'm going to take these now and I'm going to dump these onto this handle. So I want to use record only again because I only want to grab the manual values. I don't want to grab all this other stuff. I only want intensity on this fader. And I'm going to type sub 51, enter, enter. Now record only has a really cool function when used in combination with a Q or a submaster. Whereas record will overwrite a submaster, record only will actually add something to that submaster. So now, if I clear my stage, clear sneak enter, I actually have both of these groups on that handle. So now I can do the same thing, glow those, grab the next set, so on and so forth. Now I keep using offset 2 and then offset /2. This is another great place for a macro. And you can actually see here from when I was building this file, I actually do have an offset 2 and an offset 2/2, which allows me to really quickly go through these selections. So let's make that together. So to do my offset 2, first thing I want to do is I want my group in my command line, so group 63. And then I'm going to learn this macro. Let's put it right next to the other macro that we built, which is macro 14 is the invert tilt up macro that we built. Let's put it on macro 15. Now I want to start with my group in the command line because I only want to record the offset. I don't want to record the group into the macro. But I also don't want it to throw an error while I'm doing it. So I need to make sure there's something applicable in the command line before I move forward. I want to learn 15, enter, and it says I am learning. It's blinking, so I know it's ready to go. Offset 2, enter, and then I'm going to hit learn. So now, group 63, and I hit that, it's going to repopulate my offset. And the second half of this is I want to be able to grab the other side. So I'm going to grab make one more macro. First I'm going to label this one. Macro 15 label, offset 2. And then I want to create a second group. So again, I need something valid in my command line, group 63. And then I'm going to learn right below it because geographically that makes sense. Offset 2/2. Enter, learn. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to label that. Macro 25 is the macro that I'm learning, or that I'm labeling, and I'm going to call it offset 2/2. And we're actually going to use this macro a lot. But it's a good way of where I didn't start with a macro, but I found a need with one because I kept hitting these offsets. So now that I've got my macro built, I can go ahead and I can grab my truss 4 spots. I can use my offset 2 macro, set them to full, and I've automatically just grabbed every other light. And use record only, sub 51, because that's where I want it to be merged to. Enter, enter, and it's going to now, it is now merged into that. So if I clear my stage, clear sneak enter, we can see that I have that there. Now with a clear command line, if I just say select last, offset 2/2, at full enter, it's going to grab the other group of lights. Record only, sub 52, enter, enter, clear my stage, and now I have my odds and my evens. There is one other thing that I had to type that I'm going to be doing over and over again. So I can actually go in here and amend this macro, right? Because when I selected my truss 4 spots, offset 2 gave me the selection I want. But then what I had to do is I had to hit select last and my macro. So this is a good example of building things up as you need them. I didn't put everything I needed in my macro the first time around, so I'm going to go in there and edit it. I'm going to double tap macro to get my macro editor. And under offset 2, you can see it just says 2/2. If I hit edit, and with offset highlighted, because I want to put something before that, if I just type in select last, and then I choose done, now this macro is going to do a little bit more of the work for me. I can grab my spots, offset 2 at full enter, turns on the evens. And now if I just hit this offset 2/2 macro, it's going to grab the other set of lights because it does that select last command for me. It's one less thing I need to do. So now it's cut one keystroke off of my programming. So now it's very quick for me to come into any of these systems here, like say my truss 1 beams, offset 2 at full, great, record only, sub 51, enter, enter, clear, sneak, enter. And then I'm just going to grab my offset 2 at full, enter, record only, sub 52. And now I've got my odds and my even beams on there. And it cut out a lot of the work. I could very quickly slam through these. So that's a good example of building a macro as you need it to accomplish a task. And it's very simple. There's not much to the macro. It's just automating some keystrokes for us. So I'm going to lay out all of those different systems on here, because then I can use them to build my other palettes.